Alright students, so here's the beginning of the pen project. The way you're going to do this is you're going to get two pieces at 2 1/8 of an inch, and as you see here I have drawn a line to let you know that this is the direction of the grain and this is where the cut was made, so that it looks like the wood is continuous once you get your pen put together. So then after that you'll want to make your X's, where you're going to put a line from one corner to the other so that you have a nice mark for center. After this, we're going to head right to the drill press, and we're going to start to cut our hole directly through the center of this piece. Alright, here we are at the drill press. I'm going to put this in fast motion just so it goes a little quicker. But you ultimately want to come in and out a few times with the drill bit so that it doesn't get clogged. And once you make it all the way through, you can go ahead and release the clamp and pull your piece out. Then go ahead and repeat and do the same with the next piece. Alright, so next you're going to want to get into your handy dandy little pen kit here that Mr. Coop will give you. And you can start looking at all the parts if you want to, but make sure you keep them all together. The only parts you need right now are the brass tubes. Now these brass tubes slide right into your pieces, but we don't want them sliding in and out, so we're going to need to glue them. What we need to do is get them so they're not so smooth. So a nice piece of 80 grit. We just start twisting, sanding, goes down, getting it nice and roughed up. Okay, now we've got our two scratched up pieces of brass, and we have our two barrels. Now it's time to glue it in. We're going to be using what's called 2P10. This is an adhesive that is a two-part, and what it is a thick 2P10 that you are going to put into the barrel, and then insert your brass tube, and then once it's in, you'll spray the activator to make the glue go off. So the way I like to do this is I like to insert the nozzle through from one side, and it's kind of hard with this downward facing, but you can see the nozzle pretty much right at the end. Once I see the glue starting to come out, of the nozzle, I start pulling backwards, and until that's got glue everywhere, I start rotating it so the glue can kind of get everywhere inside, and then I go ahead and insert brass and I spin it as it goes in, and you want as best you can to not get this glue on your hands. So now the tube's in, flush on either side, and this is when take the activator, just spray the one end, and you'll see that that's already crystallizing and hardening that glue that's spilled out on the opposite side. I got out this little black non-stick so that if the glue happened to touch that, it won't harm it very much. And repeat the process for part 2. Alright, so this may be one of the more technical and critical parts of this. So this one, the glue hardly got in there, but it's still important that we cut down the wood to be flush with the brass. So I like to start on the side that's cleanest and just make sure our barrel's clear. So you put this into the vise, and then you need to use a specialized barrel trimming bit that has a cutter head right here, and also this spiral tip that will clear out glue from inside the barrel. Okay, so once you have it in there, you want to be as straight down as possible, and the key to this is keeping a high speed. So I'm going to go from the easy side first. You're going to be going fast and bouncing a lot. Okay, and you pull it out frequently to clear out the glue, which you can clear off with a putty knife or with, I have a razor knife, that's what I'm going to use, because there can be a lot of glue in there, which is okay. But if you get too much glue in your bit, the glue will stick to the sidewalls of your brass tubing, and then it will pull the brass tubing out Alright. So that is all the way clear on that side. And you see shiny brass there. Also the glue seems to be coming out on that side. Now, we flip it around. We gotta clear off this side. So now you can see the brass tubing is right there at the edge. So we've cut away a little bit more wood. That's just what's natural, and then there's brass tubing there. So this side is ready to go, and I'll do the other side fast motion. Alright class, so now you've got your two cylinders that are hollowed out from the barrel trimmer, nice and smooth, no glue, brass is in, glued tight. Now you're coming here to the lathe, and this is a special lathe tool that allows for you to do pens. There should be 5 of these bushings, these silver pieces. Those are spacers so that your pen parts can be separated away from the edges. You're going to start with this layout. So there should be 2 bushings right up against the headstock. You'll slide on your first piece. Now remember, you have those marks telling you where the grain was. So you want to slide it on so that your marks will face each other. So this should go on pretty easily since I did my barrel trimming. And yet, something seems tight. Alright. Then you put 1 in between the 2 pieces. Put your next piece on. Remember to have your lines lined up. And then number 1, number 2. So 2, 1, 2. That's the key. Now this gold piece right here is going to make it so that there is some tension, so that these guys don't just spin freely, but instead they're pinched in there so that when you touch it with the lathe, they are good to go. Then I bring the tailstock in. There's a centering point here, and you're going to tighten down the tailstock and put a little tension on here, but you don't need to put much. Alright, so now you're locked and loaded. This is the way you're supposed to look. The key on this, the bushings are also a guide for about how thin you need to be in order for the pen parts to match up nice. So I always tell students, you're welcome to create some fun shape, bulbous, however you want to for the part that you're going to write with, the front. But the back kind of needs to be pretty slender and thin for the sake of having the clip actually function and work with the end cap. So that's just the only thing to watch out for. You'll see me do that. I'll make this nice and smooth and thin, and I'm going to create a fun shape that's kind of more of a ellipse, parabola type shape here. So I'm going to go ahead and get going. I'll try and do this in fast motion with speed. Alright, so folks, now that I've got the rough shape that I like, it's time for me to start sanding, starting from 80 grit and moving towards my 220 and maybe even 400. The key to sanding is you really want to make sure not to sand from the metal towards your wood, because if you sand the metal, it's going to get little metal shards in the sandpaper, and then it's going to discolor your wood and get it all silvery and yucky, and it's also not good for the bushings. So you always want to be sanding moving this direction and stay away from the metal. And at the last stage, you can just sand by hand off of the lathe those little sections right near the ends. Okay, so those are the keys. Go ahead and check it out. I'm going to go ahead and sand this puppy out with all the different grits. Okay guys, now that you have your pen sanded out and everything, it's time for you to do some sort of wax or polish or finish on this. If you're doing a wax or polish, it's a good idea to go ahead and do it while it's on the lathe. If you're going to do some other kind of finish, you may do it off the lathe, but I'm doing a polish, so I'm going to get some polish on a rag and then turn it on. You don't need super high speed when you're doing this. You can turn it down and then just watch it come to life. Alright, now you've got yourself a pen. Now we just got to put the parts together. Here we go. Oh yeah, one more thing before we move on, I just remembered. So I've taken off my pen parts, and there'll be 2 bushings left here, and oh look, there's some that I had to take off in order to get my last piece off. This is not the way we leave the lathe once we're done with the pens. Please make sure you return all the bushings, so there should be 5 on there. Place the brass tightening nut on there as well, and go ahead and return the headstock, or sorry, the tailstock to its location so that this is securely fastened. The only other option is to take it out of the lathe altogether and put it back with the parts where all the other pen parts are. So one of those 2 options is okay. Talk to Mr. Coop if you have any questions. Alright, thanks so much. Okay, now's the fun part of putting the puzzle together. You got your bag of goodies. You can shake them out on the table, make sure you don't lose any. They're all individually wrapped, so it shouldn't be too big of an issue. We're going to start with this. Sorry, we're not going to start with that piece. We're going to start with this piece. This, as maybe you can tell, is the tip of the pen. The tip of the pen goes on the front here, and you can start to press it on with your hands, but you're probably going to need some assistance with this here vise. So all these parts might use the assistance of the vise. I set it in there and I just slowly start to turn the vise tighter and make sure that it's, oh, I got a little off of centered, so I needed to loosen it up. See this? It's a little wonky, so I need to make sure to straighten that out and try it again. Now, the next part is this part that is mostly silver and then has brass at the end. You're going to insert the brass towards the front, and you're going to push it until just past this silver indent. Let's see if we can get it focused on that silver indent right there. Okay, so let's see if we can get that so that it's towards you. You're going to start pressing it until it starts to go in. There we go, just on the indent there. Now you get to take your finish bushing here, slide it over the top, and it has a little friction right there, but then once it gets over, it's good. Okay, then you're going to want to slide your pen part in and twist it until it locks. Okay. Then after that, you're going to take your back. Now you need to remember to look for the grain in the direction it goes. So my grain is like that. And you want it to line up right with when it's closed, you want it to line up. So there's my grain match right there. And this can sometimes go on by hand, but usually needs a little assistance here. You don't want to mash it too hard, just enough to get it to tighten up. Okay, finally we're going to put on the last two parts, which is the pen clip and the back end cap. So the end cap goes over the clip, and voila! You've got your pen all together. Okay? And you'll see that if you twist it, the pen will come out, just the back it'll close.